is a huge racing weekend out in Southern California. So let's talk about some graded stake action at Santa Anita. Salutations and welcome, horse racing fans. I'm your host to this episode of the Graded Stakes Preview at Santa Anita. My name is Matthew DeSantis, and you can find me on Twitter at the handle at Failed to Menace. Well, we have a huge weekend of Kentucky Derby prep races and graded stakes places taking place across the country. So make sure to press that subscribe button and subscribe to Trust the Profits here on YouTube. We have coverage of the races in New York, in Florida, in California, and even in Kentucky at Turfway Park with the Battaglia Memorial. So we have coverage all over. We have the Thursday Night Lounge, which is a lot of fun. We have the Win Play Show where we recap what happened the week before. Whatever type of content you're into in horse racing, we got you covered. But like I said, today we're going to be focusing this graded stakes preview on the 4 graded stakes races out at Santa Anita this weekend on Saturday, and in particular, the San Felipe Stakes, obviously kind of the headliner to some extent, even though it's not the grade 1 race. There are a couple of grade 1 races on the card. The San Felipe, though, has everybody's attention. All of the horses have been transferred to new barns. All of these horses are now eligible for Kentucky Derby points. And so it's going to be a lot of fun to see an 11-horse field of 3-year-olds run out in California. And for a big day, I decided to bring on a wonderful guest, and I'm thrilled to be joined by Jessica Pyfer, who is a 2021 Apprentice Eclipse Award winner and is doing commentating and analysis out at Santa Anita. Jessica, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Yeah, thank you. It's really fun to do these, especially on big days like we have on Saturday. So thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So, as somebody who's living in the East Coast and dealing with my own crazy weather, I figured we'd start with a banal conversation about weather out in Southern California because racing, of course, was canceled last weekend because of the crazy weather. How are things going out in Southern California now? How's the track looking? And how are things looking for the weekend?
Yeah, it's finally sunny. We had about a week of some pretty tough rain. I think we had about like 9 to 10 inches of rain, which for Southern California, we are not prepared for. There's snow up on the mountains. If you see the backdrop of Santa Anita, if you come out this weekend, it's really cool. I mean, Thursday morning was just an unbelievable sight of all the snow up on the mountains. A lot of the people who have lived here for a lot of their lives have said that they haven't seen that much snow ever. So it was really kind of a cool sight, but also so cool because a lot of our horses weren't able to go to the track. There was quite a few days where the track was closed. Like you said, last weekend of racing was closed. So it's been rough, which is why it kind of makes this card so interesting because a lot of the Eastern invaders have a little bit of an advantage on us where they had their last work and then they shipped. Whereas a lot of the horses, especially in the big cap, have not had their last work. So it'll be definitely interesting to see if that affects it at all. They're also shipping in, so gives a disadvantage for them as well. But we're finally back in sunny again. We had a lot of wind yesterday, so it dried out the track really well. Was still the main track was pretty firm this morning. They did take the races off the turf for tomorrow. Friday racing at Santa Anita. There was only about 3 races, so it wasn't a huge deal, but definitely saving the turf for Saturday for those graded stakes races.
Yeah, and let's just first of all, that's great news to hear. Thrilled to hear that the track's in good condition. And you're absolutely right. It was noticeable when looking at the past performances to see those workout gaps for a lot of the California horses of going, wow, it's been 2 weeks. It's been 12 days. It's been a little while since that last work. And so I think that absolutely is something to keep in mind. But speaking of the turf, let's dive right into the first of 4 graded stakes races on the card. And we'll start things off with the Buena Vista Stakes, which is a grade 2 going 1 mile on the turf for 4-year-olds and up for fillies and mares. The morning line favorite, the number 6 horse, Quattro El, who won last time out with Hector Barrios aboard. Jessica, what were your thoughts on this turf race, this field, and kind of where are you looking in this one?
Yeah, this is a really tough field of good fillies and mares in this race. My dad, Phil D'Amato, has 3, and they're all very competitive fillies. The 2 Macadamia, kind of a funny story, if you like behind-the-scenes stories. Tiago Pereira just happened to come in and work one day for my dad. My dad put him accidentally on macadamia, just kind of a thing where we needed an extra rider to get on a horse. Tiago was there. He's always willing to come out and help, so it was really nice of him. And he fell in love with this filly. And Ricky Gonzalez had been riding this horse through and through, but he had another one to work for my dad that day. And the next week he comes back, and my dad had given him instructions to work another horse. And he goes, "Wait, what about Macadamia, the one I worked last week?" And my dad's like, "Oh, you want to work her again?" And he's like, "Yeah, I loved her." And so my dad's like, "Okay, you can work her. Like, if you like her, you can work her." Something that dad.
That's great. I mean, we hear it, I think, all the time, and I've been around horses enough to know, sometimes people, jockeys, and just average everyday people have connections with certain animals, and you just kind of hit it off, and
Yeah.
jockey and horse just kind of blend into one. And obviously, Tiago, great ride last time out, getting a win on Macadamia.
So then he actually got to ride her because he had been working her so much, and she had actually been working the best she ever has worked. So we
Oh,
like
wow.
to say it's the Brazilian connection because Mia came from Brazil. So it's kind of a funny story there. But
Yeah.
she's going to step up into Graded Stakes Company for the first time. She's been training really well. Tiago's been on there in the mornings again. And it will be a step up. But her main problem in her races has been passing horses. She does not like to pass horses. We've tried to teach her that in the morning, and I think she's finally gotten it down. Finally passed horses last time, won really nicely. Was actually further back than she had been in her last few races. So she needs to improve to be against these fillies in this grade 2 race, but I think she has the ability to step up. She worked recently with the number 5 School Dance, another one of my dad's, who is kind of just the consistent, classy filly in the barn.
Mhm.
She's been consistent in those graded stakes races. She's really a good filly. She's always a good workhorse. She's really strong and competitive in the mornings. And she just kind of had a not so good day last time. I think that was just, horses have bad days, humans have
Sure.
bad, just kind of a thing. She kind of just didn't have a good day. She only got beat 2 lengths by having a bad day. So it wasn't a bad race, but going the mile distance, I think that she has more of that tactical speed to just sit in the pocket and pounce when she needs to. And I really like her coming into this race. As you said, number 6, Quattrell, she is the favorite. She did step up a lot her last few races going into that grade 3 company. She's always been consistent. I would just rather prefer one of the others. I don't, I have trouble because I pick another horse over my dad's, but
No, it's funny. I think Quattrell was a horse I really liked last time out, and was able to profit a little bit off of that kind of pick. But she is a horse that's going to need a little bit of pace,
yeah,
and there might not be exactly the pace set up for her in this race.
yeah,
And so it's funny. I looked at a horse like Macadamia. I thought was very interesting. Honestly, your comments about Tiago, now I'm all in on this horse, because I was kind of like liking her a little bit, and maybe underneath, maybe second. And I was like, but I do think, she presents some nice value there at 6-1 on the morning line. Kitty Katana was another interesting horse, just because you figure the 7 and the 4 are going to be the 2 horses that are going to be pretty forwardly placed. And depending on how the turf is playing out there at Santa Anita, sometimes it can be very favorable to forwardly placed horses. So definitely looking at the Kitty Katana as another kind of interesting horse in that spot. Like I said, Quattrell was a horse I liked last time out at 8-1 on the morning line, and was still a little bit of a price. At
yeah,
3-1 is the favorite. I'm just not as confident. You mentioned she's an honest mare. She runs honest all the time, but a lot of times it's underneath. She needs the right sort of setup to win, and so that's why at 3-1, little too short of a price for me to take in this one. But yeah, definitely. So was looking at Macadamia as a horse underneath. And like I said, Kitty Katana is another horse that might sit the right trip, gets Flavian aboard. I know Flavian, a lot of people have been making a big deal about his struggles out in Southern California, but the guy hasn't forgotten how to ride a horse. And so I tend to think those are sometimes overblown. We're having a lot of those discussions on the East Coast about Joel Rosario right now. Again, same sort of thing. He hasn't forgotten how to ride horses. So, these guys will bounce back. Everybody goes through kind of ebbs and flows with this stuff. So, Yeah. So do you have a top pick? Are you kind of leaning one way? You mentioned School Dance and Macadamia. Where are you going in this one?
I'm leaning School Dance, but I have a long shot that I've loved for
Ooh.
time. The number 8, Nadette for Neil Drysdale. I have absolutely fallen on this filly every time she's run here in the U.S. She ran a huge race coming off a layoff and shipping from France in the Autumn Miss
Mhm.
to back. Huge race. I mean, she came flying at
Yeah.
the end. Pace wasn't very fast. A filly that I get on every day, Rhea Moon, beat her, which is a really good filly. And so
Mhm.
last time coming into the megahertz, I was all on Nadette. She had been working so well in the morning. Um, she did get beat by 6 lengths, finishing 7th, but it was a better than looked effort completely. If you go back and watch that replay, she was wide. She was actually still coming at the end. There was just a lot of horses that she had to go around. And looking at her works on XBTV, she's still training just as good as she was before her last race. So if you want to put a long shot in there, I trust this filly, and I think she's going to run really good.
Well, that's great insight. I really appreciate it. So that is what we have in the Buena Vista Stakes. But let's move on now to the second of the 4 graded stakes races on the card, and this is the Grade 2 San Felipe going a mile and a 16th for the 3-year-olds. And of course, this is a Kentucky Derby prep where the winner will earn 50 points towards the starting gate of the Kentucky Derby and is pretty much so guaranteed to be in that starting gate by winning this particular race. And as I mentioned in the beginning, saw all of the transfers take place over the last, really last couple of weeks. We've seen the transfers from the Bob Baffert barn to Tim Yaktine in some cases, to Brendan Walsh in other cases, Brittany Russell in other cases. So we've seen these transfers. So these horses are now eligible to earn Kentucky Derby points. And we see a slew of Tim Yaktine horses, including some who are organic, as I would say, Tim Yaktine horses or native Yaktine horses, such as Practical Move. Um, this is an interesting race for me because the race setup and pace is so wild to me because I know exactly who's going to be in the lead, which is the number 8 horse, Go Rocket Ride, for Richard
Really?
Mandela. I think that horse is just going to go. Now I
I
think
do.
Hijazi has something to say about that, but I think the 7 and 8 are going to go out in front. Where do you see the speed in this one?
I completely disagree with you.
Oh wow! Talk to me,
Um,
Jessica.
the Go Rocket Ride, I've been on a lot in the mornings. I work for Richard
Okay.
Mendez half of the morning and half my dad in the morning. And when this horse ran first time, I actually never expected him to be on the lead because
Wow.
when we work him in the mornings, he always works off of horses from behind. I've
Wow.
and he's quick, but he's never like I thought he was going to go to the lead and go wire to wire quick. So with this race coming with as much speed as it does, even though he
Yeah.
is out, which naturally he'll be fast.
Mm.
Um, I just think that maybe Richard Mandela would prefer him to stalk, sit behind horses because we know he can pass horses. He's trained him in his works to do that. So I don't know. I just in this big of a race,
Yeah.
second time this horse, I don't see Richard Mandela telling Flavian to go to the front and stay how long and see how long he can hold on. I see him wanting to make him a better horse in the long term and having
Mm.
sit behind horses and not get in a crazy speed duel that's gonna happen.
Yeah. No, I mean, from a tactical standpoint, I'm actually thrilled to hear that because that's what I was kind of hoping the horse would do,
Yeah.
because he showed so much talent on debut, and obviously this is a huge step up from a one-time maiden victory to now a Grade 2 race. But it's interesting, this 3-year-old crop, there's not been nationwide, there's not necessarily been a ton of eye-popping performances. I feel like we've seen from a buyer speed figure standpoint, a lot of horses running, in the mid to low, mid to high 80s. Occasionally, somebody will break a 90.
Yeah.
And it really is this California circuit where you've seen these really fast horses, National Treasure, Hijazi, Practical Move, like pop these big numbers. And so when you see a horse like Go Rocket Ride pop a 92 on debut, you just kind of go, oh, wow, like this might be a really serious contender. And so I was a little worried about the fact that it's gate to wire. He's going to get a lot of pressure if he tries to do this again. And
Yeah.
so hearing that is actually gives me more confidence in Go Rocket Ride as a
Yeah.
potential, a little bit more of a price there, being more tactical. And Richard Mandela, that makes all the sense in the world. He wants to make sure the horse is better in the long term rather than just trying to, see if we can get a brief thrill out on the front end in a race.
Yeah, and that is why he's gonna be my top pick in here for sure. Just One, because I know how classy and a professional he is. Everybody, every time they've gotten on him in the barn, has said like how real this horse is. You just
Mm,
and you feel like you're on a good horse. He's really really effortless in the mornings, and the fact that I think he can stalk and pounce later on is going to be a very tactical move for him. Regarding the others in this race, the number 3 practical move, the organic Tim Yuck. He is definitely coming off a little bit of a layoff, but his works have been fantastic. I
yeah.
know that Flavian was actually working him one day. At the time, didn't know that Go Rocket Ride was going to run. Did definitely going to be his horse, I think, but did actually go a little bit too fast in the morning when Flavian was
Wow.
on. So the next week they had put in their exercise rider and told him to go a little easier, and he still
Mm.
went 59-1. So definitely training really well on, and I think I'm just really rooting for Tim and
Yeah.
Millie, who I work with on this horse, because it's definitely a really nice horse that they're having a shot at the lifetime for.
Yeah, it's funny that was my top pick was Practical Move, and for all the reasons you mentioned, this horse has been working just lights out. I mean, you're right, just one 5 furlong bullet after another, and that's really saying something when you're working out with all of these former Baffert horses who are, of course, always firing, really impressive workouts too. And so for Practical Move, just to show that sort of class, I thought was really impressive. I think this horse should sit a good trip, and the horse that I have a hard time quitting this horse underneath is National Treasure. This is a horse I've picked many times before and has not come through for me. And is a horse whose best 2 efforts have been at this mile and a 16th distance, essentially, running in 2 grade 1s and running competitively at both the American Pharaoh and in the Breeders' Cup Classic. I just don't know if this is a horse. You mentioned about horses passing other horses. I just don't know how much National Treasure wants to get to the finish line first sometimes. But he's a very good horse. He's got a ton of talent. That's obvious. Great pedigree. But again, 3-1 in the morning line in an 11 horse field. I feel like I want to go somewhere else for value.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that aspect of him. And I think that this is going to be a horse in his later years is going to love like a 1.25 1.5 mile distance, because I just feel like he continues to grind on and on in his races.
Mm-hmm.
And like you said, his best races have been a 1.16 mile. I think if this race was like the big cap, 1.25 miles or something like that, he would thrive in that kind of situation. So definitely agree with you. A horse that I love long shots. Okay, you'll
I
learn.
love it.
um, but this is quite a bit of a long shot. The number 5, Genius Jimmy,
Mm-hmm.
had shown nothing prior to his last race. Really nothing. And completely dominated his last race. I mean, he was keen early. He went 46 and 1.125 miles on the turf, and continued to run on late and galloped out way past all the others that were trying to catch him. So he's going to have to go to the dirt. He just won 1.125 miles on the turf. I understand that. But I think that if that form from his last race can translate to this, it's a big step up, like I said. But
Mm-hmm.
his last race just really impressed me. And I mean, they have to take a shot with a horse who won that impressively last time to take a
Mm-hmm.
shot at Derby and run him on the dirt. So
Hey, I'm all about on this show. We love giving out long shots, so you're in the right place, Jessica. This is perfect, and he does feel like a horse, and I feel like Chase the Chaos might be a little bit like this too. A horse that won on synthetic and now coming back to dirt, and who kind of comes running late a little bit. Certainly did in that El Camino Real. So again, if there's a little bit of a pace meltdown, should benefit and should come running late. These are horses that I feel like you have to include in your vertical exotics. That if you want to make your exacta or trifecta a little bit more rich, you just can't fill it up with National Treasure, Practical Move, Hijazi, and Go Rocket Ride. You got to throw in a couple of these horses because inevitably one of them is going to pop and run a little bit better than their odds would indicate. So definitely like that. And I think the horse that I'm probably most interested in seeing is Hijazi, a horse who I think maybe distance compromised. I'm not 100% sure how this horse is going to handle an aggressive pace with the distance. And so that combination kind of leads me to looking elsewhere. But I know Baffert was extremely high on this horse, who took a long time to break his maiden, but was running in Grade One company prior to that. But again, I just am not 100% sure the mile and a 16th, 11 horse field, a lot of speed up front is going to set up well.
Yeah, don't ask me about Hajazi, and I'm pretty sure that's the exact same thing. He's been kind of a difficult horse. He's not difficult in the mornings. I see him all the time. Actually, leading up to his last race, I was at the gate for working for Anita, and he was just such a calm and collected professional individual.
Mm.
And it's just kind of shocking to me that everyone has said how good he's trained, even going into his first race, how much they thought he had a future. And then he's just kind of been like a head scratcher. I agree with you with the fast pace. I don't know if he will be able to keep up with that, or maybe he might lose his confidence. Not sure. Like I said, don't ask me about that horse. He is
Yeah.
head scratching.
No, there are a few horses that are absolutely like that, where they can work out great in the mornings and then they get worked up sometimes. Or I know sometimes they've talked in that Southern California circuit about horses that will respond negatively to the paddock at one of the tracks, but not the other. They'll like Del Mar more than Santa Anita or vice versa. And so, yeah, it's just some horses you just have a tough to get a beat on
Yeah.
sometimes. So this should be a thrilling race, though, and super excited to see, because obviously the winner, like I said, we will definitely be seeing, knock on wood, if everybody's healthy, in the Kentucky Derby this year. So that's always exciting. So let's move on to the third of the 4 graded stakes races. And this one is a little bit later on the card, the Frankie Kilroe Mile. And I mentioned this is a Grade 1 on the turf, a mile for 4-year-olds and up. And this features a few of your dad's horses as well, including one who is the overwhelming favorite, who is coming back from a long layoff, Hong Kong Harry. I was thrilled to see him back on the track, one of my personal favorites. And so he's right there. But I think there's a few other horses in this race who are very interesting from a betting standpoint. But Jessica, I'll let you kind of kick things off here.
Yeah, Hong Kong Harry, you can't go wrong with him. Definitely the deserving favorite. And he has actually the most personality of any horse in the barn. He is the silliest horse. He messes with everybody, messes with everything. One of the happiest horses I've ever seen out on the track. And he has been training really well. He just has that natural turn of foot that's so fast on the turf. And he is coming back very good. He is literally knocking down his stall to get out. And he loves to run and go at everybody. So very excited to see him come back. He's my number 1 pick. He's just, that turn of foot is so, I don't even know how to say it. It's just so energetic and that's Harry.
Yeah. No, it's when you see horses like that, particularly on the turf, it's just breathtaking sometimes. I mean, there was a race a few weeks ago for people watching who follow Gulfstream Park. There was a 3-year-old filly, Cairo Consort, who kind of blew the break, and everybody thought the race was over. And she came for home and made up about 9 lengths in 4 strides, it seemed like, and just exploded on the field. And so when you see that, you don't see that in dirt racing that often. When you see that in that turf racing, it's just jaw-dropping, and you just go, my God, is everybody else running on a different track, or something like that. So it's great to hear that he's back and ready to roll, though.
Yeah, definitely. The only thing that, I mean, I say that it worries me, but it really doesn't, because I trust this horse so much. It's lack of pace. I don't know if it's a big lack of pace, but I think Air Force Red and my dad's other one, Master of Foxhounds, will be on the lead together. I don't know if they'll go too fast. That's why I say, like speed scenario. I don't know. Master of Foxhounds last time kind of had a rough trip due to me. I was on the outside on another one of my dad's and was kind of moving a little bit early, and it kind of forced Master of Foxhounds to move a little bit early. And then I the winner, my so that he could come and beat Master of Foxhounds. I'm not in the race this time. But this horse has a shot. Like I said, he was forced to move a little bit early last time, and a horse by the name of Prince Abama just nailed him at the wire. So I think he definitely could step up again in this spot. Another one of my dad's, Balnikov.
Yep.
He hung really badly last time. I mean, like he was going to pass one more bid easily, and then just stayed with him all the way to the wire until he got beat. So horse has been training really well as well, except him and Hong Kong Harry have been working together, and Hong Kong Harry has been beating him in most of the works. So if you want to compare those two, that's what
Mm-hmm.
I've that. Royal Ship for trainer Richard Mandela. If you wonder why they've put blinkers on, it's because when he came back off of a layoff, he started wheeling in the mornings and he dropped his rider. So Richard Mandela's go-to move is put blinkers on, kind of block everything out
Mm-hmm.
of their focus, keep them focused, and they've just decided to keep them on for the race as well. Little interesting that they're going back to turf. I did not ask him about that. I probably should tomorrow, but
Yeah.
he has run on the turf before, only got beaten by a length in actually this race in
Mm-hmm.
20. So he is training well. He's had a 7 furlong work, a 6 furlong work. Richard Mandela typically does that when horses are coming off a layoff like this. I just don't know if maybe he'll need a race.
Yeah. No, it felt like he might need a race. Maybe that was why they tried him on the turf too. Just kind of maybe an easy spot back. I wasn't entirely sure. He is an intriguing horse because he's run well on the turf. I mean, it's not like there's this huge discrepancy between his speed figures on turf and dirt. He runs well on turf. And he ultimately was running on turf down in Brazil prior to coming up. And so,
Yeah,
he's comfortable on the surface. The far outside post, granted, it's only post 9, but still the outside post, blinkers on is an interesting move. That's an interesting side note that you bring up
yeah,
about the way he acts up, because you never know. Is it sometimes blinkers are getting on because you just want a horse forwardly placed, or is it more behavioral? You
yeah,
just want a horse to focus and calm down a little bit, rather than acting up too much. Before talking to you, I was going to pick Balnikov, but now Hong Kong Harry's looking pretty good, and and I will say, Master of Foxhounds is a horse that I always like, and I always kind of get sucked into betting on, for one reason or another. But part of it's because I live here in Northern Virginia, which is like the epicenter for mounted fox hunting, and so I know a lot of people who are Master of Foxhounds around here, and so I always love the name of the horse. But this should be a great one. But I think you and I kind of saw this one pretty similarly in terms of the 3 and the 4 kind of going out and being on the lead. I don't think it's going to be an aggressive pace,
yeah,
but they're the 2 clear front runners here. Part of the reason I like Balnikov maybe a little bit more than you was just he has the versatility to sit a little bit closer in some instances, maybe not sit as far back as Hong Kong Harry. Again, if that pace doesn't really speed up at all, and maybe it's coming back from the layoff, just you never know. But it's going to be hard for me to get past the favorite, I think, in this one. And this was one where I may just single if I'm playing horizontally, or if I'm playing vertically, throw in some bigger prices underneath in this one, perhaps even a horse like Gold Phoenix, who I'm kind of interested in at a 12-1 price, kind of running underneath in there. But let's go to the final race on the card, which is the Santa Anita Handicap Grade 1 mile and a quarter. National Treasure should be in this race. I absolutely agree. This is, it's funny when you were talking about him earlier. He reminds me a little bit of another Baffert horse in Country Grammar, where he just kind
yeah.
of grinds. It's never, you're never wowed by anything, but it's just like, oh well, there he goes, and like just the more distance you give him, the better he does. So, but ultimately he's sticking to the 3-year-old. So the 4-year-olds and up though, going a mile and a quarter here at Santa Anita, 11 horse field. The morning line favorite is the number 5 horse, the Bob Baffert horse, Defunded, who, of course, last time came in second at the Grade 1 Pegasus World Cup. This one is also filled with a ton of early speed. And going the 10 furlongs, I was really looking at horses who are going to be sitting off the pace or who have really strong late pace figures. And it's led me to a couple of horses that I normally don't go toward, but I think the race setup might go towards this way. And so I think Proxy is an interesting horse at 4-1 on the far outside for Michael Stidham with great late speed. I don't love that far outside post position, but again, should be able to hopefully maneuver over, just because he's not going to try to get up front. And so he can just kind of take back a little bit and gear over.
Long run into the first turn. So
Yes, very long run into the first turn. And the other 2 that I'm also looking at, Newgrange and There Goes Harvard, 2 horses that I think are kind of interesting in their own ways. There Goes Harvard was on the turf last time out. Now it comes back to the dirt, which I think is the more preferable surface, and also has good late speed. And then Newgrange is a horse that has speed, but should not be as forwardly placed as some of these other speed horses. And so if the track in particular, by the end of the card, you'll see how speed is holding up on this dirt track. If it's not maybe that favorable to deep closers, then a horse like Newgrange, I think, made some sense. But interested in where you looked in this one, Jessica.
Same as you.
Oh, there you go. All right.
Was my long shot and actually top pick. He has been training really good in the mornings. There's works on XBTV of him, and Kazushi Kimura has been aboard him, so has gotten to know him in the morning. And I really, because his last two efforts were failed, they were not good at all.
Mhm.
I really looked to his works to see if maybe he's just not liking what he's doing anymore. Maybe there's some energy that's not there, and that is not what I found at all. He was completely dragging Kazushi Kimura in the irons, his last work, going 47, which is very fast coming race. Galloped out really easily past his company, went on even further. He basically worked 6 furlongs, in my opinion, and did it very easily. So I really love to see that energy coming from him, since his last 2 races have not been good.
Mm-hmm.
He's run 1.25 miles. He's won 1.25 miles in the Gold Cup. So yeah. I really think for a price, this is the horse to go on. Newgrange as well. Love Newgrange. He's one of my favorites in the barn. I galloped him for a long time until he got too tough for me. But it was really sad to give him away. But has been training really good as well. Frankie Dettori has been out to work him in the mornings. We've just kind of figured out that he's a horse that's always going to kind of take himself out of the race, take a breather at about the quarter pole, 3/8 pole, and you just have to keep riding him. And that happened last time with Juan Hernandez in the Grade 2 San Pasqual. He kind of came back at about the quarter pole, looked like he was done. I mean, I thought he was done. And then all of a sudden he comes back on. So I think the 1.25 miles should not be tough on him. He has had a 6 furlong work in him. That was with Frankie Dettori on him, so he knows him, and really pulling for him here.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, this is an interesting race. Like I said, there's a lot of front end speed. I think, Stiletto Boy is a horse that I absolutely love. And by the way, ran his heart out in that Pegasus World Cup. I thought Mike Smith gave him the ride he needed to give him to do what he did in that race. I didn't think Stiletto Boy, I had him pick third in that race, and I was thrilled that he actually finished third in that race. And that was kind of my ceiling on him. But at 1.25 miles, I just think Stiletto Boy's distance compromised. 1.16 miles, at most 1.125 miles is kind of the distance that I look for him at. And then Defunded, interesting. I just, again, think there's a lot of front end speed going to get sucked up into that, going the 1.25 miles. Defunded's a horse, again, finishes second to Fairmount, and a horse that I just, at a short price in a big field that's super competitive and super talented, willing to look elsewhere. So makes me feel a little bit better that we're on the same page with this one, Jessica. So yeah, that's good. So Jessica, thank you again for joining and running down these 4 races. Really appreciate it. Let everybody know where they can find you on Twitter, or where they can find all of your work that you're doing for Santa Anita.
Yeah, so I believe I am at Jockey Jess on Twitter, on Instagram, Jockey Jess 1, because I had to delete my first account. And then, Santa Anita this weekend, huge card, obviously on Saturday. There's a mandatory pick 6 that they're estimating about $3 million, along with the Coast to Coast pick 5, which has been a new wager that's really fun to play and has had great payouts. So definitely look for that. And look forward to seeing you guys soon.
Absolutely. Well, Jessica, thank you again. Really appreciate it. And thank you all for tuning in. Make sure to press the like button on this video. Let us know who you like in these 4 graded stakes races on the card, what your best bet on Saturday at Santa Anita will be. Until next time, friends, my name is Matthew DeSantis, reminding you to have a great and profitable day at the races and telling you that it's now post time.